I would like to thank ASSOCHAM and Varun for having me here. Today we have with us Shri Biju Baby, VP Indian Integration and Development Equinix, Shri Milind Kulkarni, Senior Vice President Corporate Strategy STT GDC India, Shri Amit Luthra, Director and General Manager Storage Platforms and Solutions Dell India, Shri Manu Sharma, CFO Pi Data Centers Private Limited, Shri Ashish Srivastava, CTO CloudFirst Technology. So we have the finest of industry advisors here with us today, so who can actually enlighten us with the desired information. So without taking much of your time, I would like to initiate the discussion with a few questions on the topic making India a global data hub and what shall be done to actually meet the objective. So, I would start with Shri Biju Baby and Shri Milind Kulkarni. So, the question is, where do you think the Indian data center market stands today, and how do you see it growing in next 5 years, 5 to 10 years primarily, and what shall be the key drivers which will actually propel the sector to grow?
Vikram, do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. First of all, thank you for ASSOCHAM for organizing this event and inviting me to participate in this panel. Look forward to a great discussion here. Regarding the question around, where do I think the Indian data center market stands today? The short answer is that for the demand that we see in India, we see a shortage of high quality data centers. And by that, I mean data centers built to international standards, right? And clearly the demand is there for that. Case in point, Equinix has about 10,000 customers, and a lot of them are deployed with us in multiple countries. And we entered India because our multinational customers overwhelmingly wanted us to be in India. That was the number one demand from all of these multinational companies as to which market we need to be in. And now that we have entered India, every customer asks me how soon can we integrate the India business and get onto the global platform. So clearly, India as part of the global platform, demand is there. Now, in terms of the growth, depending on which industry analyst you look at, the growth expectation is somewhere between 15% to 25% CAGR, right? So, somewhere in that range is what we're talking about over the next 5 years. And if you look at growth of data center industry globally, that is one of the highest, if not the highest, in the world. So I think others have sort of hit upon this topic as well, which is if you look at the overall trends, I think the conclusion that we come to is that India is at a threshold of data center growth cycle. It's coming. We can all see it coming. But in terms of sort of looking forward from here, how much of that growth becomes reality? There are various factors that will sort of influence that. And the three top things for me is one is the government posture towards data centers. And we heard a lot from the government officials today. The general attitude is very positive, leaning into this sector. And in every hub around the world, we are present in 26 countries around the world. Every hub around the world, take Singapore, take London, Amsterdam, Virginia, Silicon Valley. The government policies were instrumental in that hub becoming the hub that it is today. And it really comes down to sort of the incentives on the one hand and the friction or the opposite of ease of doing business, the difficulty of doing business. Or you can think about it as the carrot and the stick, both of which government has a huge influence on. So I would say the government posture toward data center is perhaps one big factor. The second big factor, which also many people alluded to, is the access to fiber and network connectivity. Data centers don't exist in isolation. You can't create an island of data centers. The customers in these data centers, they need a rich set of connectivity options, not just to connect with their business partners. Manoj Paul talked about the example of a food delivery service and how you need to connect to various business partners, but also to build, to connect your own infrastructure, because companies coming to India are deploying in Mumbai, they're deploying in Chennai, they're deploying in Bangalore, they're deploying in NCR. How do you connect all of this stuff up? So reliability of the network is a problem in India, and because of fiber cuts and other network issues that tend to crop up. And on this front, again, the recent moves by the Department of Telecom is a huge step in the right direction. But there is more to do here in terms of reliability of fiber and connectivity options. The third thing I would say is the availability of power, and particularly sustainable power or green power. It's going to be really important in the longevity of build cycle. So if you look at the global hubs around the world, Singapore, Amsterdam, Dublin, etc., there comes a time when power becomes constrained. The hubs grow to a point where people say, oh, too much. So we need to manage this growth in a sustainable way, so that we can run this cycle for as long as possible. And it's not just from that point, but also from a customer standpoint. Our customers are demanding that data centers be sustainable, that we be sustainable in terms of our use of power. Now there's a lot of focus on this area, but I would say that is another big factor that will drive the growth of this sector in India.
All right. Okay. So can I request Milind Kulkarni ji to add in something here with respect
Thanks,
to
Vikram.
the market?
Am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
Thank you, Vikram. I think while Biju has covered majority of the points, just to share some of the data points to start with, I think we as India, we are around 7% of Asia Pacific market, and we talk about that. There is huge scope and growth opportunities India and around. That is one thing what I could really look at. As rightly mentioned by Biju, we are also expecting around 20-25% CAGR year on year, and roughly currently around 480 to 500 megawatt capacity what we have in India. We are looking at around 1.3 gigawatt by 2025 plus. So it's a huge and fast demand what we're expecting. Also, one of the pointer what we are seeing is those next 2 years are going to be very crucial for this industry, because a lot of players are coming in, and typical cycle of constructing data center in India, knowing that time next 2 years are going to be very critical where capacity build will happen. And the important aspect in the next 2 years will be how to utilize and how to sweat the assets. I think that is going to be another important aspect. While another good part I see is that data center capacity per million population in India is the lowest as compared to developed countries. I feel it is a positive message. While it may not, but it is because that gives us an opportunity to grow, and that defines the scope and growth opportunity available in India as a country, and even for outsiders to come to India and build it further. The last point is 30% demand growth. What we're expecting is coming from new drivers, and when I say existing will continue, new drivers, when we talk about data residency, then emerging sectors, data center hub, edge demands. So those are the very positive things which also helps us to see that the way economy is growing, this will propel the industry to even getting additional demand from these new drivers. So those are few things which I could see from numbers perspective. And when it comes to drivers, I think we are second largest mobile providers in the world. Mobile users, I should say. And with that, if we talk about IoT and people are talking about AI, ML, close to users, gaming, OTT industries, we are thinking that around fourfold data center data usage will happen in India in next few years. And if that be the case, you can imagine the growth of data center industry not only at the center overall level, but even at the edge data centers levels, which will also automatically important that we need to have a solid network connectivity infrastructure built in, and how we will handle that will be crucial for us as we go along with this. Industries which are looking for this, new industries which we feel is adding to this, is mainly agri, healthcare, retail and logistics. We have seen huge growth in last 1.5 to 2 years because of pandemic, and we feel that will continue because the momentum has shifted already to that kind of thought process, that kind of, I may use the word culture or the model, and that is where we feel that overall growth will happen for data center industry. The next one will be pace of migration from on-prem to cloud. The people who are on-prem setups, what they have, they're also looking at moving to cloud environment, and that will also drive the huge growth. And it will give cost benefit to even customers who are thinking of going from on-prem to cloud kind of setup. And obviously the last one, which everybody is talking about from data localization perspective. I think that is a huge opportunity for data localization, which will automatically drive growth for data and in turn driving growth for data center industry. Those are a few of the pointers from data and growth drivers perspective.
Right. Thank you so much for highlighting the key drivers and the 3 key areas which which the sector is looking out for: government initiatives, sustainable power, and connectivity. Thank you so much, Biju and Milind. So next, Biju, I have another question for you, wherein how much role does the government and its policies play in its growth? plain growth of data center and success of data center market. So what sort of measures can the government take to expedite the growth of this sector primarily? So if you and Ashish, if you can actually contribute to this question, please.
Sure.
So Biju, you can go first. Yeah.
Yeah, clearly government has a huge role in this, and you can think of this from both from the demand side, as in what creates demand for data centers, as well as the supply side, which would be building these data centers, right? And government, plays a role in both of these. So if you look at it on the demand side, the policies that sort of open up the economy and help drive growth will help data centers as well. So it's one of those things where as the GDP growth kicks in, data centers are part of the broader economy. They cannot get benefit from that as well. So think of it as rising tide lifts all boats, and data center is one of the boats that will go up. But more specifically, regulations that relate to movement and storage of data will have an implication on the growth of data center sector. We talked about the personal data protection bill and how that is likely to create more demand for data center in India. And that is absolutely true. That will happen. A lot of the data that serves India today is hosted in Singapore, for example. If that data needs to get repatriated in some ways to India, that will create demand for data. Now, this is a tricky subject and we have to be careful about this, because one could take this too far. Because if all pieces of data has to be localized and has to be within the country boundaries, and every country starts doing this, meaning that Singapore's data has to stay in Singapore, Philippines data has to stay in Philippines, Malaysia's data has to stay in Malaysia, then the role of a hub logically does not exist. There is no hub. So we have to be careful about how this sort of plays out in terms of establishing India as the regional hub. Then on the supply side, the government is coming up with incentives and single window clearances to help the data center sector, both of which are music to my ears in terms of helping the growth being an operator in this space. But there's more to be done here, right? Because we all talk about megawatts and how many megawatts are coming into the market. That's one metric. But if you think about data centers broadly speaking, there are really three kinds, and folks touched on this. There's what you would call the cloud center. These are the hyperscalers, and these are massive 100 megawatt plus deployments that are sitting on very large parcels of land and need a lot of power, etc. And then you have the metro data centers of 10 to 30 megawatt range. These are sitting in the metros, in the cities, so to speak. And a lot of the network traffic is interconnected in these metros, and makes a lot of the digital ecosystem that we talk about today possible, because no ecosystem is built with one party or one provider. It's usually coming together of multiple parties and collaboration that drives these ecosystems. By the way, the whole notion of hybrid multi-cloud, that phenomena is happening in these metro data centers, not in the hyperscale data centers. And then finally, you have this emerging category of edge data centers that are, call it, less than a megawatt in size, and is driven by the promise of 5G, if you will. So if you think about sort of the incentives and friction involved, we can't think of data centers as one size fits all, and sort of have one sort of incentive that would work for everybody. So we have to be careful about the incentives that are targeted towards the hyperscalers and the cloud centers. That is extremely important, but also incentives that help drive these metro data centers that can create digital ecosystems and get them to flourish. That's what I would say in terms of being more nuanced about how incentives and the single window clearances and the ease of doing business is done to consider the various types of data centers.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So Ashish, would you like to add something? We can't hear you, Ashish ji.
Now it's fine?
Yeah, and now it's audible. Thank you.
Okay. So thanks for Biju. You can connect most of points related to data localization, but still lots of data is going out of India Okay, because there is the I want to add some more points to promote the skill developments. Okay, skill developments and upgradation initiative to addressing the skill gap of the trained manpower to be able to meet the demand of the data center and cloud computing platform. That's really important because you see, still lots of IT professionals they still selecting the region in outside India. Okay, so they can be select the data region in India, but they are selecting still out of India region. Okay, they have not a big idea about the data latency and all that. Okay, so without skill development, we can't achieve our targets. And second point is the extend the fiscal incentive for the domestic startup and MSME MSME to develop solutions the data center users. Still, we are a startup developing lots of application, lots of web application, mobile application. But due to cloud data usage charges, sometimes after some time they can't afford and they can going for the shutdown. They have the idea, they have the application, but they can't survive them due to huge sustainability cost actually. So if government help us to give us, I don't know exact relief, but government can work with us to reduce the SaaS-based software cost because cloud data center required for the SaaS-based software cost actually. If you go with any software, so that will be cost minimum year. If you go with the yearly subscription, software cost will be 15,000, 20,000 per user per annum. So we have to also focus to less down this cost so that will be improve the data center market. Thank you, Vikram.
All right, thank you for summarizing Biju and Ashish ji. So primarily the areas onto which the government should look out for is regulations on data storage and its movement, the upcoming PDP bill, single window clearance, incentives, and, one which is not highlighted everywhere, but it's very important, that is skill development. Thank you so much. So the next question is for Sri Manuji and Sri Milanji. So what are some of the impediments you think the data center industry is facing today in the country? And along with that, what are the potential solutions which can create conducive environment for the industry and invoke positive sentiments in the investors?
Thanks, Vikram. Milanji, you mind if I take this first?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, thanks, Vikram, and thanks, Varun and ASSOCHAM for organizing this event, for having me here for this on this wonderful platform to bring all the industry stakeholders together. It's a pleasure to be among leaders here. We've been talking about the challenges being faced by the data center companies in India on multiple forums, including the platforms provided by ASSOCHAM. And there are various fronts for improvement, as Biju has mentioned and Ashish has mentioned a couple of them in the talk just now. If I have to summarize and pick a few of them, then on the top of my list would be the regulatory clearances. That's where the government comes in. The previous question was about the impact of the government on the industry and the role that it has to play. Things like single window clearance for data centers, financial incentives, including efficient tax structures, for sure, continuous availability of high quality power at optimum cost. To keep the industry involved and to the sentiment, to maintain the sentiments of the investors and to make them interested in the data center space in India, these are the key ingredients which any investor in data center space would like to see before they commit millions and billions of dollars investment into this industry. When we talk about single window clearance or regulatory clearances, I'm referring to making data center a national agenda driven by a central agency across the country, which regulates the issues like land allotment, power availability, and not to forget the norms of commercial building construction, which needs to be realigned to cover data center as a separate category, as the design and build of data center is completely different from any other commercial or residential structures. So there is a need that the norms that are there existing in the country needs to be realigned to cater to data center specific structures. Financial initiatives along with tax incentives and attractive tax structures is something that has always been a priority for the global investors and shall continue to be so. In this scenario, it will not be a bad idea to focus on pure export-oriented data center hubs with very attractive tax structures, which will make India a target destination not only for the entire Asia region, but for even a larger piece of share from the world. We mentioned that if all the countries start to have data localization, then the hubs will become meaningless. But that is far ahead of us, because at one point of time, Singapore and the Middle East and the likes of US were the hubs. They continue to be the hubs. Now there are countries which are in the Asia Pacific region which don't have the infrastructure in place, which has to be there before they come up with data localization policies. And for them, India will always continue. India has the potential to be the hub, and there's a huge market in the Asia Pacific region itself, where we in India we have, for the known reasons, probably the lowest cost of construction per megawatt. It's still one of the cheapest, and we should encash that to not only avoid the drain of dollars that is going to countries like Singapore, say, but also to become a hub in the entire region. It was very encouraging to hear the Honorable Minister Srimati Anupriya Patel in the morning, where she mentioned that the policy in the making is already addressing some of these impediments and maybe more. Another eagerly awaited event is the rollout of the 5G services. There has been so much talk about in the last many years, and it's time we see it happening in real. The data center service providers, especially like ours, where we have decent presence, along with the internet exchange, 5G is something which we are very, very excited about. Government continues to be instrumental, not only as a regulator or somebody who has to oversee the entire industry, but also as the biggest spender in the data center industry. I mean, converting citizen data and regulating citizen data into the electronic form is still there. The huge potential of smart cities, which is there in the business, which keeps us exciting, and this excitement needs to continue. And the initiatives which have started should continue with the same zeal. I mean, these are some of the challenges which we need to address to make sure that the industry is very conducive to attract investment and for the investors to come here for a long time. The data center industry is here to stay. This is something which we have realized in the last few years, and this is the future of the country for the country. And it's very interesting to see that the leadership of the country is very well aligned and very well enthusiastic about making this a reality. Over to you, Vikram.
So, which well articulated, Manuji. Milanji, you want to add something?
Yeah, thanks, Manu, for covering majority of the points. Maybe I'll give a little deeper on what are the areas he has covered, so that panel listeners will get more insights around areas to focus on or maybe look at. Quickly, if I say the harmonious sync between national and state data center policy is very important. While I think it is very close working which is happening through NASSCOM, ASSOCHAM, and CI and many bodies, I think, yes, we are also working as STT GDC India. We have spent a good amount of time in working together and giving our inputs while building this thing. But that is going to be a very important aspect in building this policy, a good handshake between state and center policies. Second is, as we know, and Manu will 100% agree with me, data center industry is a capex intensive industry, and how we will manage finance, cash flow, capex are going to be very critical. And every penny counts as we go along in the journey. We are moving from a little bit of monopoly to a competitive world in this industry, and it's going to be an interesting phase for next 2-3 years to be competitive and ensure that life for a day for Manu is very good as a CFO in the new organization. So I think if I may add few of the pointers, as we rightly said, from land and infrastructure perspective, we should look out for specific around how we can have a differential treatment for FSIs, how we can have a differential certain areas which will be excluded from FSI calculation itself, how we can talk about duty waivers from stamp duties and all that. So a little deeper around land and infrastructure, because that also adds to substantial area when it comes to cities like Mumbai, Chennai, and metros. So we have to be very specific around that. Ease of doing business, I think Manu talked about single window clearances, and earlier also Ajay and Abhishek mentioned in their presentation. Single window is going to be very important concept. How to convert and materialize that is going to be very important in the journey. Power, yes. Going beyond availability of power, also we can talk about electricity duty waiver or power bill reimbursement at the early part of it to increase the cash flow perspective or finance perspective of the organization. And sometimes because we have good transmission charges which comes along with the power, it's not only generation and availability, but it's equally important to have transmission and distribution charges because we lose around 30 to 35% energy into transmission and distribution. So use scope around that area also to think through from power perspective. Renewable energy, again, wheeling charges, transmission charges, how differently we can handle that, because renewable energy is going to be very key. And right now, currently we're talking about 50-51%, which could be done as part of renewable energy. How we can move that more and going at the deeper level, how we can ensure that open access is provided to get renewable energy better, and how we can make more benefit from that is going to be important, not only from data center industry perspective, but overall, because that will in turn drive sustainability and carbon emission aspects also. Water, yes, sometimes giving a special subsidiary or treatment for water treatment plants, rainwater harvesting, because technologies are evolving. Some old data centers may have water-cooled water requirements more, newer may have air-cooled requirements more, but still water is going to be a critical aspect in this, and how we can manage this water subsidiaries also is going to be important from government perspective to look at. Next one is from network connectivity. I think everybody talked about, and if we apply from a global perspective to India, how we can talk about dark fiber connectivities, how we can ensure that data centers are connected well, not going through a typical network which is designed for B2C market. How we can handle that better is going to be very important from network architecture and availability perspective. And the last one is other incentives when we talk about property development and SGST. So overall, there are 6 or 7 areas which we could focus upon, and if we drill down data deeper, there could be around 15-20 areas. And I think I've heard Deepak talking about when we start meeting different states and central people, we should talk about this particular thought process and share more details around how this will in turn benefit local people also, and also to the organizations who are working in data center industry. These are some of the specific inputs, maybe a little deeper, so that it will help people who are listening to this call.
Thank you so much. So primarily, just to highlight a few clearances, you have single window for high quality. Yes, we need high quality for the sector to survive and to actually grow. Then RE should be encouraged in order to have a better ecosystem, and along with that, open access as well. Building code, yes, I agree. It is very important for data centers to have a separate building code. And then connectivity, as it's already been discussed. Thank you so much. So we may move on to the next question. Again, I'll point it to Manuji and Ashish ji. So the question for you guys is, what changes do the data center players have to make or are making in the business models, let's say services and daily operations, to allow them to serve a data-driven economy such as India? So Manuji, anyone amongst you can start first.
Ashish, you will take it first.
Ashish, are you there? I guess he's not.
Ashish, you are mute.
Yeah. Ashish, you're on mute.
Okay, I'll start in that case. Yeah. So, when we talk about data centers, there are key factors. If you drill down the top 5 or 6 factors, they would be common in all the questions and all the highlights of the session that we'll do. Today, India is generating data every single day faster than any other nation in the world. In this situation, the delta, the rate of change is extremely fast. And to cope up with that rate, the data center operators have to revisit their business strategy with every sunrise. That's how I would like to put it. The traditional norms of setting up and running data center is long gone. And the expectation of the customers are growing every single day. The customers are coming from all segments, including e-commerce to green companies, fintech companies, edutech companies, to name a few. And they are evolving their products and services every single day, which is forcing the data center companies to be flexible and agile in catering the needs of their customers. As the number of customers are increasing both in cloud as well as co-location business, their demands for services is continuously growing. The customer understands the value of the data and ready to shell out the dollars to protect and preserve the data. Not only the safety and the security of the data is critical, even more critical is the continuous availability of the data from anywhere at any point of time. So this means factors like connectivity, availability, security, and all of it at optimum pricing are the most critical components of the data center service provided by any data center operator. In all these, to bring down the overall TCO to optimum levels. Not only these, the demand for hand and feed support is growing very rapidly. This clearly means that the margin of error is just not there. With the data center space getting crowded, as we have seen in the last few years in India, the availability of domestic as well as global alternates has put tremendous pressure, performance pressure on the data center service providers. With the way data is being consumed and generated in the country, the topmost expectation of any customer is high quality continuous availability of fully secured infrastructure. We are at a stage where an outage or a cyber attack on a data center can easily put it out of business forever. This means that the data center service provider has to be on top of providing the latest and most sophisticated security solutions to its customers, along with high quality connectivity across the country, which in turn has put pressure on ISPs as well as to deliver the last mile connectivity seamlessly. Innovation in services, bundling of services at optimum cost have become a given, and sustaining margins is becoming extremely challenging. In the last few years, technology innovation has given solutions which has helped data centers to keep moving and keep evolving and maintain those margins. I'm talking about new battery technology, like fewer and long-lasting batteries. Integrated BMS has helped to monitor better and reduce wastages. The data hall layouts have changed to optimize the cold to hot airflow. There have been experiments with the direct liquid cooling systems to eliminate the need to cool the entire data halls. Use of closed loop systems in place of traditional water evaporating cooling systems. These are some of the instances where the operating side of the data centers has continuously evolved and will keep on evolving. And the data center operators have to adopt to these changes and the technology changes if they have to stay in business. Over to you, Ashish.
Ashish, would you like to add something?
Yes. So in India, we are the world's largest democracy. The data economy provides the endless opportunities for the citizens, business, market, politics, and culture, and sports and entertainment. India has the robust domestic data consumption and variety of the positive indicators that will be help it advance towards a data-driven economy. Okay. So I want to focus to, I feel that there is some of the, changes are, some of the improvement needs to for the data center daily and there the business model. We need one of the strong partner ecosystem because India is the very largest country. Okay. And it can't be served by the strong channel partner network. Channel partner does not need to resell the service, but understand the local consumer needs and provide them with the host the service above the infrastructure layer. Okay, so there is some of the education gap so that consumer is still hosting their data in their own server, their computer, their external hard disk. Because they are very worried about I will host my data to any data center in outside their office, outside their home. That data will be not secure. So we need to strong ecosystem though who can educate them your data will be secure in the technology perspective, in the logical perspective. There is the need of the strong partner ecosystem to survive the data center and you make the global data hub. There is also need to optimizing the business strategy. Business strategy is we need ecosystem of the trusted partner who can work as the single team on your business goals. You allow your partner to contribute your strategic direction of your product and your business. Rather than the lack of decentralized control, what we get the assurance you all focus the same outcomes and win of your business and win of them. And second and last observation that we have to celebrate one of the month in the cloud month in the any month we can choose January to December. there is the cloud of month. We can focus about the promote the skill and development and upgradation initiative, because we need to large level the trained manpower to handle this data center and cloud computing platforms. That's a very important. And same month we have to focus about the IT and telecom segment that will be lead the data center market in India. Media and entertainment, retail and manufacturing sectors are next significant verticals that require the most number of the data centers. So that is the we feel that we need to change some this direction.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, thank you for providing insights on the question and the business model and services along with daily operations for cloud service provider or data center providers. Yeah. So, the next question, it's a very interesting question. So, Amit ji or Biju ji, whosoever wants to take it first, please go ahead. So, it's one of the major flags received by DC industry is that it's an energy guzzling sector. So, what are some of the major initiatives that have been taken up by data center players, locally or globally to counter these claims and make the data center operations more environment friendly? So, anyone, Biju ji or Amit ji, you can, actually start.
Okay, can I start, Biju ji? So this is Amit here. Data centers definitely consume enormous quantities of power, and they contribute to increasing carbon emissions. What you have told is no rocket science. It's in fact, it's very true. But there have been some encouraging developments that could reduce the emission, if not eliminate them altogether, I would say. The introduction of hyperscale data centers, wherein the hardware and software could be shared between data centers, auto scaling, liquid or air cooling systems, or intelligent weather monitoring systems are some of the key sustainable solutions that are being used by leading data center players across the globe. Along with this, setting up of green data centers is an evolving trend in current times. This will make the data centers operations much more environmental friendly. But to be very honest, all the infrastructure providers like that of Dell definitely need to incorporate the years of comprehensive research and development experience they have in building products catering to data center infrastructure, right? This can definitely help them to bring down the carbon footprint or consume lesser power. So industry is working on that now.
All right. Okay. Biju ji, we can't hear you. I guess there's some.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's audible now.
Yeah, this is a really important issue, and thank you, Amit ji, for sort of providing perspectives on that. And I feel like we as an industry, as a data center industry, need to rise to this challenge. This is a challenge facing the industry. We need to rise to this challenge. Let me talk a little bit about what Equinix is doing in this space. So we at Equinix started the sustainability efforts back in 2014. So we've been at it for about 7 years now. And when we started, we just started collecting our data around what is our sustainability level and started establishing the standards and goals. And then we also started looking at our improving our energy efficiency. So Amit ji talked about sort of what can you do to improve the efficiency of the existing infrastructure. You could look at it from a PUE perspective in the data center world. And we've invested over 130 million in energy efficiency upgrades, retrofits, and sort of improvements of existing infrastructure. Then if you go back to your original question, which is data centers use a lot of energy. That's true. And if you look at where this energy is coming from, 98% of it is coming from the electricity grid. Only 2% comes from sort of the generators and the other on-site installations that you have. So 98% is where the bulk of the electricity coming from the grid contributes to this this issue. So what we had done on that front is, back in 2015, we signed our first power agreement with wind power for about 200 megawatts. And since then, we have signed multiple virtual power purchase agreements or VPPA agreements and energy credits to help green the energy grid, right? So that's really what we are trying to do, is to green the grid from which we are drawing 98% of our power. And we are putting serious money on this, right? We issued a green bond for 3.7 billion US dollars for investment into renewable energy efforts, right? And from everything that we have done since 2014, 2015, we currently are at about 91% renewable energy in our entire global portfolio. So we've gone to like 91%. To put that into perspective, since 2015, we have doubled our data center footprint across the world, and we have halved our carbon footprint. So that is good. That is goodness, and we want to continue in that realm. And we're not sort of satisfied with that 91%. We have a commitment to get to 100% renewable energy by 2030 in every country we operate. So this is a really big deal for Equinix, and it's sort of putting its money where its mouth is, and essentially going all out on this front. And our efforts are being sort of recognized. So we received the Green Power Leadership from the EPA, which is the environment regulatory body in the US, every year since 2017. And then we work with our customers like Google, AWS, Microsoft, VMware, etc., and so partnering with them on our sustainability efforts. So we think of sustainability not as a burden. We think of it as, and not just as good for the environment. We think it makes complete business sense, for us to do that. And also ties back to my previous point around why this green power is going to be an important element in the growth of this industry in sort of in the coming future. So if I were to sort of wrap all of this stuff up, I would say in a nutshell, we have to make sustainability a priority and talk about the progress we are actually making, because it's not like we are standing still in the industry. We are making progress, but we need to do more in terms of making that visible. And we would love to work with others in the industry and government to advance the sustainability of data center as a whole. And the last point I'll make is just a plug. If anyone wants to know more about what Equinix is doing on sustainability, please go to sustainability.equinix.com, and there's a wealth of more information out there. Hope that helps.
Thank you so much. I'll definitely go and check. So next question, I'll keep it open for all, because I'm not sure whether we have much of time available. So what are some of the best practices, development, let's say development, operations, regulations from globe that can be applied to ecosystem of India data center sector, which can be which can make it more robust as an industry? So anyone, Manuji, Milanji, anyone can actually take this up, please, or anyone has any inputs on it, please.
Thanks, Vikram. Since you took my name first, let me start with something from me. Okay, thanks for that. I think, as you rightly mentioned, both ways, some of good practices which we should inculcate maybe or use. First one is faster data center build, and I think that is one of the key area which we should learn. How things are evolving, how technologies are changing, how quickly we could build these data centers and implement it, because that is going to be the game changer in next few years. Second is obviously efficient power management and design itself for a right PUE. I think we have some thoughts around that. We go with sometimes conservative approach, and I come from a Six Sigma background, so people always will say we should not achieve Six Sigma in everything, which is the right thing. But what should be the right strike between investment and our output, and the quality output is very important as we go along in this journey. And I think power efficiency and PUEs will play a very critical role, and there are good things to adopt from global practices. The third important one is we should start looking at, while it is very simple, but it is core at the operations, is IBMS, and I'm specifically not calling it as a BMS, but IBMS, which includes SCADA, EPMS, and CPM and BPM combined together, which will fuel that data into AI, data lake, analytics kind of thought process. And that is where a lot of data crunching, analytics, actioning will happen. And once we implement that, this is the same. We'll be able to achieve much better data center efficiency, which is going to be critical. The next point is from operations side. Again, now things are shifting not only from uptime. Now people are thinking that uptime is given, but latency is the name of the game. And when we talk about latencies, because of the OTTs, gaming zone, kids are using hookup to their mobiles, and if the applications are not playing for a few seconds, interest is gone. So I think latency is the name of the game when it comes to edge data centers, and network connectivity will play a much higher role into that. Last 2 points which I would like to add. One is very important in sustainability. As we go along, it is going to be very critical for the industry. And it's not only from overall globalization or carbon emission and other perspective, but it's equally important from company organization perspective to ensure that we achieve this, and that will also help in turn to company to talk about better market capitalization and when it comes to shareholder value creation. I think that is going to be equally important from that financial perspective also. And the last one is less talked about, but EHS. I think we talk about environmental health safety when it comes to a little bit around something in projects, something in operations, we do it, but there is huge scope, and I think this needs a cultural change and a top-down approach where we should specifically emphasize upon EHS in every part of our activities. It's both equally important to focus on projects and operations where EHS is going to be a major focus area for us. Those are some of the things which I think we could easily adopt or learn sometimes good things from international people. And the last one is network connectivity. I think we talked a lot about that, but how we can ensure that that is unless until we do that part, I think it is going to be very critical to manage and get the real benefit of all this ballgame. It is a heartbeat. I'll put it that way. So thanks. I think those are some of my points in this particular topic.
Thanks, Milanji. Maybe Vikram, I'll take the next shot very quickly. But I know we are behind schedule, but I'll very quickly wrap it up in a few minutes. Milanji has rightly mentioned most of the ingredients or the best practices when it comes to whether the connectivity or the quality, security, and power as well. I'll limit my talk about just 2 points. One of them, and in the larger picture, sustainability. Yes, that is very, very critical because this industry has a huge life. It is not something which will be there for the next just couple of decades. It's a matter it will stay forever. So I think the key ingredients for a data center is technology and power. There is a whole lot of evolution and innovation that has happened on the technology side, whether it is the automation or the quality of the servers or any infrastructure. I think that has already done in the last few years and will keep on evolving. But on the power side, there's a huge potential and it will be a big differentiator. That is something which we as data center service providers we need to be very cautiously aware of. It is one of the main focus points. That's why you see the global technology giants like Apple, the Google, the likes of them, they are investing so much in the green power. That is where the focus should be, and every single step on the development or the evolution of the power, conservation of power, the consumption of power will extrapolate to multiple double digits or a large value and volume at the bottom line, each both for the data center service providers as well as for the customers. So it has a financial reason, it has a social reason, it has all the reasons that why power should be one of the top focus areas for all the data center companies in the near future. We heard Mr. Abhishek Singh mention about Maharashtra, and along with Maharashtra, he mentioned the name of the states of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. We also heard Controller's CEO, Mr. Sridhar, in the morning, where he said that irrespective of the state's independent power policies, the power should be regulated at a national level. Why I'm mentioning this is because doing ease of business or doing access or getting access to high quality, reliable power in the states like Telangana and Andhra Pradesh is much easier than any other state. I'm sure all the people present on this platform today are aware that NTPC has started that 25 megawatt floating solar power plant in Andhra Pradesh. I mean, that is just one step. We need more initiatives like this. Not just the initiatives, we need a portion of the power generated by these initiatives earmarked and allocated exclusively for data centers. Now, that is something which I think I'm sure ASSOCHAM will keep on working. We will keep working with ASSOCHAM to make that and to voice this concern and so that it reaches to the right levels. One more thing which was there on my mind, which I will quickly wrap up in 1 minute, is the quality of the data centers. I mean, no longer 5.999.999 is the desired expectation. Now it is 6 nines. So with every single day, the expectation is very different from the customers. So quality of the data centers, as I said in my previous talk, that the margin of error is not there at all. The quality has to be absolutely high. And along with that, it has to have a bottom line impact to the customer as well as to the data center for long-term sustainability. So I think that is it.
Right.
Yeah, this is thanks.
I think Vikram, sorry to intervene again. Just one more point which I was thinking when you mentioned. I think while
Yes, please.
let's talk about is cyber security. I think we have to be very focused around that. And sorry, I'm just interjecting in between. But when I was thinking loud, I thought in whole presentations we talk less about very important aspect. And while we talk about future wars will not be in battlefield. It will be biological or cyber. So I think it is going to be very important to ensure that we build a proper fort and right controls, right check and balance, right cyber security in place. And we have seen many examples where bigger companies have also been impacted and no one is spared, if I may use the word. So we have to be very focused and cautious about building cyber security approach to our data centers and how we can take it forward and how we can make specific solutions around that, because we're talking about automation, digitization, going data into cloud, using all those data on mobility and web portals and all that stuff, chatbots. So we can talk about a lot how we can ensure from the cybersecurity is going to be very critical in the journey. Sorry to add, but I thought that is very important point to add at this point.
Of course, it is, sir. Thank you so much. So finally, we come to the end of the session. I, on behalf of ASSOCHAM, thank you all for taking up time from your busy schedules to attend the session on the topic that's impacting overall footprint of India in the digital world. Thank you so much.